Oh, yeah. Oh, I can feel it in my veins. Oh, if it doesn't want to make you go get a pump on at the gym, I don't know what will. Oh, yeah, baby, because we fight to survive. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Colecast, the podcast for all of us. I'm Xlj the Og, and unfortunately, I'm supposed to be joined by our good buddy, the best Gout Machine. Inconspicuous by his absence. Not sure where he is exactly,
Where the hell am I?
but maybe he pops in here. We'll see. But we're going to fight to survive, baby, because today is a very special episode of Colecast. This is an episode I have been wanting to do for a very long time. Today we're talking about another subject that is very near and dear to me, a subject that deserves love. Today we are talking about 80s action flicks, 80s action films, which is arguably the era that put 80s action films on the map as you all know it today. It is a spectacular genre of films, and the 80s laid the blueprint for action films, because it was like in the 80s, it was just the over the top, ridiculous, insane, testosterone driven action films that really defined this genre. I mean, there was action films before, don't get me wrong. But I think also, too, that being said, in the 80s, it's really that era where action films showed you that you could be profitable. I mean, most genres of film, like, the horror genre, of course, as you all know, we love and adore here on Cold TV. But that genre itself existed for years and was profitable during different eras and stuff. Even if you go back into the 70s, and I mean, there's some decent 70s action flicks, but I don't even think truly, really, it was like hit its stride until in the 70s, as far as action films, really, with like guys like Clint Eastwood, Charles Bronson, and etc. You had like the cool actors like Paul Newman and Robert Redford and stuff like that, but they did kind of a plethora of different genres of films. But it really wasn't until the 80s where we got that true definitive era of action films. We're going to talk about it here today on Colecast. And to be honest with you, like there's a number of things. Like, one, it's the films themselves, of course. But to me, what made this genre so successful, especially in the 80s, was star power. Because there is so many amazing actors who really just define this era of action films. And that's what we're going to mainly focus on here today on Colecast, is talking about these amazing action stars of the 80s. I mean, listen to this lineup of who's who of actors. Everyone from, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal, Dolph Lundgren, Chuck Norris, Bruce Willis, Mel Gibson, Kurt Russell, Harrison Ford, Patrick Swayze, Timothy Dalton. This list just goes on and on and on of all of these incredible actors who really defined, in my opinion, the greatest era of action films ever was the 80s. The 90s had some pretty solid ones too. But the 80s, like I say, it was the blueprint. So, and of course, when you're talking the 80s and you're starting this discussion, hell, when you're talking action films in general, there's two names that come to mind, and it's Stallone and it's Schwarzenegger. So to start off, we got to talk about the insane rivalry between Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is very fascinating. Of course, Arnold, obviously well known for being the most dominant Mr. Universe champion in his body, literally his body. And then kind of experiment with some acting in the 70s, but it's really the 80s where Arnold truly arrived. Now, Stallone, on the other hand, hell, at this point, Stallone had already won an Oscar for Rocky in 1977, and obviously the Rocky series already kind of establishing and putting Sylvester Stallone on the map. But my gosh, the run that these two guys had in the 80s of action flicks, it's insane. Like with Schwarzenegger, you can see why he became a household name. I mean, his big break, of course, came with Conan the Barbarian. I mean, and that film, based off the Marvel comic, which I think is another fascinating thing to think Arnold's big break was a comic book movie, which, it's a sword and sorcery type of genre of film, of course, but Arnold really, that was his big. That's what put him on the map, was playing Conan the Barbarian, and just like Conan. It's funny because Conan, they have kind of retold it throughout the years and tried to reboot, so to speak. I know there was a Jason Momoa movie, which, I mean, Jason Momoa is a stud in himself. Don't get me wrong, but Arnold as Conan is just like, you can't. He's irreplaceable. He's absolutely irreplaceable. And the very first Conan the Barbarian was I remember watching this all the time as a kid. They would usually, it'd be Conan followed by like the second Conan, like on TBS and stuff. Oh my gosh, man! Like just the so many amazing story, number one. But like even Arnold's like lines in this film, like, because at this point too, you got to keep in mind this other thing I think people don't realize too, unless you were there for it. Like when Arnold started acting, man, he could barely speak English, or his English was. I shouldn't say barely speak, but I mean it was kind of a very broken English, and he was very hard to understand. So for him doing dialogue and stuff could be a bit challenging. I mean, Conan didn't have a lot to say, but like when he said it, like it counted. But just like him wielding the sword, like that iconic, I can think of that iconic scene where he's like wielding the sword, and then just his muscles and just like protruding. It's just incredible. But I will say, I want to say this too about Conan, the first one. It's great film, but I think what makes the film, like, gives it that stamp of approval, so to speak, is, as with any story, especially in action films, with any antagonist, you got to have with protagonist, you got to have the antagonist, and the villain, played by James Earl Jones in Conan the Barbarian. Like, James Earl Jones is, good God, such a great actor. But seeing him as like the film, just that iconic voice, of course, but also a physical presence himself in James Earl Jones. So that first Conan was great. The sequel, I like the sequel a lot too, Conan the Destroyer, which would come out a couple years later. And what I like the most about the second Conan, what always sticks out to me really, is the cast. The cast is phenomenal. I mean, you have Grace Jones in there, who, God, what a Adonis she was, right? Especially in that time frame in the 80s, and Wilt Chamberlain in there as well, as 7 foot tall Wilt Chamberlain. Interesting enough, I don't know if a lot of people realize this or know this, but believe it or not, Andre the Giant was actually in Conan the Destroyer. He played one of the monsters or something in there. I think he goes in there. It's like his uncredited. But dude, both the Conan movies are phenomenal. It's crazy to me too to think that like they didn't make any more Conans. Like those were the only two. But then again, if you let's look at the rest of Arnold's body of work in the 80s. I mean, he was a busy dude. I mean, think of this. You go to Conan. Okay, so you have Conan the Barbarian, followed up by Conan the Destroyer. 2 mega hits. And then what's he do to follow that? the Terminator. Like, and of course, like you would easily say for Stallone, Rocky is probably his definitive role, or Rambo. Schwarzenegger, it's the Terminator. I mean, look, here's the picture. It's the Terminator, man. Like that is what Arnold's going to be most known for of all of his roles. But man, oh man, like the Terminator is such a freaking good movie, a classic sci-fi film. But here's the crazy thing: the Terminator is so great, but a lot of people, and myself included, have to kind of lean towards Terminator 2 as the best out of the Terminator series. But the first one's incredible, man. Like, I mean, it's just a badass sci-fi movie. Like, y'all have seen it. I mean, unless you're living in a rock, you've seen one of the Terminator films, for crying out loud. We know the story. This is age as old as time. Guy sends back his best soldier in time to impregnate his mom, so he's born. Makes sense, right? But of course, like teaming up with James Cameron, who James Cameron at this time was doing, he had done the Alien sequel, Aliens, and just going right into like this Terminator film, man. And it did huge box office number. And you talk about being something in pop culture that's embedded in it. So think of that. Arnold's first three movies in the 80s was the two Conans and the Terminator. I mean, that's a pretty damn good start for body of work there. But I mean, it doesn't stop there. Like from there, you go to Commando, which Commando, if you're a Arnold fan, I feel like Commando was truly like kind of Arnold's coming out party. Because it's like he's as these movies progress, like he's getting more and more dialogue and stuff, and this is the typical Schwarzenegger films we're used to, with like just crazy over the top ridiculous action and just insane like silly lines and stuff that's in there. So Commando is amazing. Like, and that's the thing about this genre with action films and this era, especially in the 80s, is like these action stars, like nothing could kill them. They did the most insane, ridiculous, like stunts and things that are not that makes no sense logically that they should be done. But it was in a film and it was cool as hell, and we all loved it. But no, Commando is one of those ones I think for Arnie. He has such a long body of work, but Commando, if you're a true Schwarzenegger fan, I think it's easily in a top 5. It's crazy to me too. Is like with Commando, they didn't make any. They didn't do a sequel or anything like that. So it's a standalone, but it's a solid ass film. And I mean, just his character in it alone, John Matrix. That name, John Matrix. Come on, man. It's such an amazing name. Of course, produced by Joel Silver, world famous producer, produced like all these crazy action and sci-fi and other big budget box office smashes. Also, this has got a young Alyssa Milano in there as well, playing Arnold's daughter too. So, but Commando, like I say, to go from that to and then do Commando. Although he did do Red Sonja, he was in that flick. That was kind of another sword and sorcery type of thing. But he's not playing Conan or anything like that. And of course, that film's really known for Brigitte Nelson. Playing the character of Red Sonja. But I think if I remember correct, and you have to forgive me, I don't believe he's, although it's extremely the same, and I think it's even in the same realm of Conan, but I don't think he's playing Conan in that film, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. Shoot me down. Like I vaguely remember watching that on like a late night. I need to, you know what? Now I'm talking about this out loud. I need to watch Red Sonja again. I need to watch Red Sonja. It's been way too long. But Brigitte Nielsen, man, oh, what a fox she was back in the day too. Yeah. So moving on throughout like Arnold's filmography in the '80s, another film that he did, and this is one. I mean, Commando has its own audience, but this film really kind of gets underlooked for whatever reason. Raw Deal was another film he did. It came out in 1986, and it was released by the De Laurentiis film company, which the De Laurentiis famous company. If you see the logo with the lion and stuff, you'll know it from the '80s. Man, they put out some killer stuff. Everything from freaking like the Evil Dead 2 to they did Bill and Ted, just to name a few. But Dino De Laurentiis, of course, a world famous movie producer. But no, this one was a solid flick, man. Raw Deal. It's not as good as Commando. I mean, it's another one where Arnold's doing like it's kind of like I would classify it in like the kind of like a cop genre type of film, pretty much. But it's like about essentially somebody gets killed, the FBI's involved, small town cop gets involved, yada yada. Like you can paint the picture. Arnold Schwarzenegger doing some crazy shit. Like what more do you need to know, right? So, but Raw Deal, like I said, that's one that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. But then you go from that to the Predator, I should say. It's Predator. What more do you want me to say? It's Predator, okay? It's Predator. It's Predator. Like, just the fucking bro shake with Carl Weathers. Come on. That is like freaking, that'll get you going more than actually doing a testosterone injection itself. If you got low T cells, watch Predator. Like, it's like the first 10 minutes for that scene. I mean, come on, man. It's Predator. It's Predator. It's Dutch, man. It's Dutch, baby. But good God, like, Predator. Predator is in like, it's a special place near and dear to my heart. I absolutely adore that movie. That will always be one of my favorite flicks. Definitely like one of my favorite sci-fis slash action. And that's the thing too. At this point, Arnold's kind of really getting into like, because I mean, he already done Terminator, which is a very sci-fi-ish film. Predator, very sci-fi-ish film. And then following that up, he did The Running Man, which you younger people may be familiar because they recently did a remake of The Running Man that came out this past year. I haven't seen it, but trust me, it's got nothing on the original Running Man, okay? But The Running Man, here's the thing that's crazy about this, if you don't know this. The Running Man is actually based on a Stephen King book, or like I think it was a short story or some shit like that. But it is an extremely sci-fi film. The premise, of course, Arnold plays a guy who's having to, who pretty much gets on a TV show, and the idea is like you go on the show and you fight for your life, pretty much, and you go against these other different like killers or whatever you want to call it. And he's like, it's kind of like he was wrongfully accused or something. And it's set to take place in the future as well. So, I mean, Running Man is an all-time classic. I love Running Man, dude. It's a great film, the original. I can't speak for the new one, but the original, holy shit. So rounding out the rest of the 80s, pretty much Arnold kind of goes into, he starts experimenting with comedic roles. So there's the buddy cop movie he does, Red Heat, which is him and Jim Belushi. And it's, I mean, it's an okay flick. Nothing really sticks out, honestly, to me. Like, I mean, it's all right, but It's a typical buddy cop film. And then he has a huge success with the straight up comedy, no action really, in Twins with him and Danny DeVito. So um, now I got to mention this, even though technically it's 1990. But holy shit, like after that, he does probably my favorite sci-fi film of all time, Total Recall. I mean, I love Total Recall, and it's kind of in the same vein with Running Man. What I love about those movies is they are set in the future, in the long future, but those movies, the way they're designed and the way they look and the aesthetic of them, is very much in the 80s. Like it's very 80s. I always love seeing futuristic sci-fi films, but where like they were set place in the way future, but they had like an 80s or 90s feel to it, and both those films like do that to a T. So I got to mention Total Recall because I absolutely love that movie. Because technically it's in production in the 80s, so that counts. And then also I got to mention this real quick for Arnold. Later in 90 comes out Kindergarten Cops, another huge comedy success. So that's the thing. At this point in in a decade's time, Arnold has pretty much conquered the action genre. He's killing it in the sci-fi genre, and he's proven he can do comedies. So it's like there's nothing that man can't do. But I'm going to list them out here again: Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, The Terminator, Commando, Red Sonja, Raw Deal, Predator, Running Man, Red Heat, Twins, and Total Recall. I mean, and yes, Kindergarten Cop. But I mean, come on, how do you top that? That's like one of the greatest runs of films that any actor could ask for, and like he's just knocking them out of the park. Like that's #1 movie every weekend, type of stuff, man. But that being said, we gotta give some love to Sly though, and I love me some Sylvester Stallone, man. Love, 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 love for Sylvester Stallone, dude. Like Sly, Rocky, he's freaking Rocky, man. Like what more can you say about it? He's Rocky, and the crazy thing is with Stallone is. You could ride your coattails off of Rocky alone, and then you get Rambo, who is another one of the most iconic figures in action. I mean, come on, man! Like that, there's no better 1-2 of characters he's played. And I would define that maybe any actor's played other than maybe Harrison Ford or something. But I mean, it's Rocky and Rambo, man. But let's look at Sly's body of work from the 1980s. Of course, coming off of Rocky there, and he also done the Rocky 2. So in the 80s, we got Rocky 3 and Rocky 4. And then if you count 1990 was when Rocky 5 came out. But here's the thing with Rocky 3 and 4 are so very, 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 very much 80s films, man. I mean, Rocky 3, you get Mr. T. You've got the Hulk Hogan as Thunder Lips. The introduction of the most iconic the introduction of the most iconic song with any Rocky. It's Eye of the Tiger. That's the first time we hear it is in Rocky 3. And speaking of soundtracks, my God, the Rocky 4 soundtrack is the blueprint for like any type of, if you want to do any like action movie where you have a montage, Jesus. Like the Rocky 4 soundtrack is insane. And Rocky 4 is such a great movie. And it introduced another guy who we're going to talk about here shortly in Dolph Lundgren. But just the Rocky movies alone. And of course, the introduction of Rambo. So First Blood comes out in 1982. And here's the thing with what I find fascinating with the Rambo flicks, because then later on you got First Blood Part 2 in 85. and then you got just be Rambo 3 in 88. 2 and 3 are so far different from First Blood, because First Blood is a very serious film. First Blood, my God, the story there, the Vietnam vet coming home, not knowing how to deal with society, being looked at and scared, and then just going into like survival instinct and going into the Canadian wilderness and fighting off Brian Dennehy. I mean, the action in it's great. Don't get me wrong, but just the story itself is, and originally, and I believe even in the book, if I recall, they had they killed John Rambo. So that movie should have been a one and done essentially, but it turned into like a huge franchise where we see Rambo movies later to come. So you get to, so the thing is, like, for me, it's always going to be First Blood. The other two are fine, but they're just completely different films, man. Like 2 and 3 is like what is like, okay, let's just make John Rambo the most ridiculous, over the top, insane character we could possibly think of. So I think the second one, he gets like recruited to go back into like Vietnam, or gets recruited to go back overseas or something like that. Is that where Troutman? I think. Okay, no, I don't think it's 2. I think 3 is where he goes back because Troutman has been captured. But here's the thing for me: like 2 and 3, kind of the stories, they are different, but they kind of also kind of blend together as well, I would say. They don't stick out like First Blood. And I will stand on that hill. First Blood is a far superior film than the others, which I think a lot of people would say. But I digress. But the 2 and 3 are fun, just fun action films. But if you go chronologically for Sylvester Stallone's run in the 80s, so it kicks off in 1981 with not even, I wouldn't even say it's an action film, Escape to Victory. And that's the thing, and when you're talking and comparing Stallone to Schwarzenegger in this time frame, the thing is, Stallone's doing like other genre stuff. He does drama stuff, and I mean that's what this flick was, pretty much. It's like they, I think he's like, it's been so long since I've seen Victory. I know they're in prison, and I think they play like soccer or some shit, I want to say, or football or whatever. But I mean, that's how he started the decade off. Then you go into Rocky 3 and First Blood, and it's just like, oh shit, okay. And then you see Stallone's filmography in the 80s. It gets a little kind of weird, because then he is, which I guess technically I don't think he stars in it, but he's like the director of Staying Alive, the John Travolta flick. So it's just like, okay. And that's another thing too. At this point, Stallone's directing shit too. So I guess technically we wouldn't count that. But he does have a cameo in it. So, and then from that, 1984, he does Rhinestone with Dolly Parton, which is a comedy essentially, based off of the song Rhinestone Cowboy. But pretty much like Dolly Parton's playing a country singer. And like Stallone essentially comes along as like her like a bodyguard or some shit like that, I think. And I could be, I'm sorry, I apologize. I could be like way off of here, but I think this is kind of what I'm vaguely recalling. But I mean, essentially it's a comedy film is what it is. It ain't no action film. It's just a comedy. So then 85, you get Rambo First Blood Part 2. And in that same year, you get Rocky 4. What a 85. Holy shit. 86. Now, I feel like this first part of the 80s, Stallone's doing like his main stuff, you know, like the Rambo and Rocky, but kind of experimenting with some other genres and stuff. But I feel like 86, we kind of start to go on a little bit of a run where he's like doing other action films outside of Rocky and Rambo. And the first one that comes to mind is a highly underrated film, in my opinion, Cobra from 1986. Cobra is so freaking ridiculous, man. It's just the typical, just badass. Nothing can stop this cop. Shit's getting blown up. People are dying left and right. He's Cobra. Nobody's gonna fuck with Cobra. But dude, Cobra is so ridiculous. It is a love of mine. It is a guilty pleasure film, I would say. Cobra's incredible. And right after that, what does he do? Another one of my guilty pleasures. Over the Top. Okay? If you're not familiar with Over the Top, it is a film about arm wrestling. Yes, arm wrestling. So Stallone plays Lincoln Hawk, an arm wrestler who's a truck driver who goes and picks up his son, who he's been estranged from because his wife died, and he tries to get like back in his good graces. And by the way, his son is a pussy in this film. I'm sorry, I'll just say it straight up. And then he's like, they drive into Vegas essentially. The kid gets kidnapped by like the rich grandpa. He has to battle his henchman at some point. And one of his henchmen, by the way, played by the late great Terry Funk. And then he gets to Vegas to do the arm wrestling contest. Of course, he wins, and winning the arm wrestling contest, he gets enough money to where he can support his son and get a big rig or whatever as part of it, because that's what he does. That's what Lincoln Hawk does. The name's great itself. Funny thing out of this too is there's action figures for Over the Top. Okay. And it's like they even have like a little like kind of like a rock'em sock'em robot thing, but it's like literally like arm wrestling. So killer toys. A lot of people criticize Over the Top. Once again, I don't care. It is a it's just holds a special place in my heart. It's a guilty pleasure. 88, you get Rambo 3. And then rounding out the rest of the year, and I find it's kind of fascinating because it's kind of similar like Stallone or like Schwarzenegger. He does Tango and Cash, which Tango and Cash is him and Kurt Russell, another megastar from the 80s we're going to talk about here. And it's a buddy cop movie. So just like Schwarzenegger and Belushi, now you got Russell with Stallone doing a buddy cop movie. And I will say this, no disrespect but to Red Heat, but Tango and Cash is a way better buddy cop film in my opinion. Like and it's got a great cast too. Jack Palance is in this. Of course, Jack Palance a couple years after this will go on to win an Oscar for City Slickers. Terry Hatcher's in this as well, a young Terry Hatcher. Tango and Cash is fucking great movie. And then also that same year he does a film called Lockup, which is one of those films I think that kind of goes under the radar as far as Stallone's body of work. But that is pretty much Sylvester Stallone's filmography from the 80s. So once again, in chronological order, we're going Nighthawks, Escape to Victory, Rocky 3, First Blood, Rhinestone, Rambo First Blood Part 2, Rocky 4, Cobra, Over the Top, Lockup, Tango, and Cash. So there you go. You compared the both. Here's the thing. I think Stallone had the two bigger hits, but overall body of work, you got to give that edge to Schwarzenegger, I'd say, ultimately. But man, it's so hard because they're both like has such mega hits. I think another way you gotta compare this to is like some of the cheesier scenes from these films. Like I'm going to give you an example. We're going to look at a couple samples here. One from a Schwarzenegger flick and one from a Stallone flick. But first, we're going to take a look at this scene from Commando, which Commando is, once again, absolutely love Commando. And this was really Arnie's coming out party, was Commando. So here we go, a little Commando for you. Check this out from Commando.
Shortly after that, we'll be showing our feature film. Flight attendants are Susan and Lance, and I'm Vicky. We're here to make your trip as comfortable as possible. Thank you, and have a safe and enjoyable
Just
flight.
casually fucking murders a guy on an airplane. Look how smooth he is. Yeah, they're not going to suspect anything.
Excuse me, how long is the flight?
We land in Valverde in exactly 11 hours.
Thank you. And do me a favor. Don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired.
Hey, look at Arnold. Oh, the classic fucking one-liner. He's dead tired. Oh, I love it so freaking much, man. It doesn't get much better than that, or does it? I don't know, because now let's take a look at a clip from Cobra that is fucking world renowned as well. And it's, what I love about this is it's very, very 80s. Check it out. Cobra. Which this movie, once again, I don't think it's enough love. Alright, he's in his apartment. Hard day's work of like dealing with bad guys and explosions and shit. Okay, he's got a carton of eggs and a box of pizza. Okay, takes his piece out. Why wouldn't you? You know, he's just trying to relax. Okay, he's got a slice of pizza. Makes sense. Get you a little, what the fuck? Why? He literally cut a piece of pizza and his gun cleaning kit's in the eggs. Of course. Why wouldn't it be there? Watch your little TV on your little 10-inch CRT. Clean your gun out. Eat your little piece of pizza that you cut up with scissors. Oh, and it's Christmas time. So does that make Cobra a Christmas movie? Just throwing that out there. Could be. Fucking hell. Look at this. It's so ridiculous. I love it. Oh my god.
Tonight,
Just
the man known
casually
as the Night
cleaning
Slasher has
his
apparently
fucking
struck
gun,
for the 16th time in
listening
just
to
over
the
a
news,
month's time.
eating his pizza
22-year-old victim
in the weirdest
was
ways. Hey, by the way,
mutilated
the
in a sharp
sunglasses are still
incident and
on.
seemed to
He
be
just takes
as
the
unlikely
fucking
a victim
sunglasses
as the
off.
other 15. Not much
Like,
else
what
is
the
known
hell
other than
are
that the Night Slasher
Sly?
preys upon anyone.
Anyone? There you go. That just shows you how neck and neck these guys are, man. Like, how do you say one scene is cornier or cheesier than the other? Like, they're both so fucking great, man. Oh dear God. This debate has went on for years. It's going to continue to go on for years, honestly. I mean, they're neck and neck. They are like peanut butter and jelly. They just, you can't talk one without the other. And I think it's fascinating too how they had such a rivalry throughout the years. And honestly, we could have dedicated this whole podcast just to Stallone and Schwarzenegger. But it's just, to me, it's just, this is going to be, when you think of 80s action films, it's going to be Stallone and Schwarzenegger neck and neck. But there's so many other great actors from this genre that we want to talk about. And first off, how could you not talk about this man right here? The late, great Chuck Norris, who we unfortunately lost here in the past. It's been a year, hasn't it? Or has it been over a year? Maybe been over a year at this point. But, I mean, Chuck Norris was already kicking ass and taking names, already doing a lot of kung fu films in the 70s and other action films, too, as well. But to me, it's really like the 80s is where, like, Chuck Norris arrived. And everybody knew about Chuck Norris. And Chuck Norris, I mean, The thing is with Chuck Norris, we talk about like the over the top crazy action stars and stuff, and just define like physical like laws of gravity and stuff. Chuck Norris is probably the most notorious for that. I mean, there's a reason there was all the Chuck Norris jokes throughout the years and stuff, and it's based off of just his run of films, especially in the 80s. He kicks off 1980 with the Octagon, which the Octagon, it's a martial arts flick, but it's just pretty much Chuck Norris being a badass and has to stop a group of terrorists. It's a group of terrorists versus Chuck Norris as a ninja. What more can you say? The terrorists are fucked, obviously. Then 1981, he follows that up with An Eye for an Eye, which is a cop film, and it has a pretty good cast in there. Christopher Lee is the bad guy, which Christopher Lee, God, I love Christopher Lee from the Hammer films. Everybody knows, obviously, from playing Dracula over the years in the 70s and stuff. A world-renowned, famous English actor. Of course, years later, a lot of people recognize him, of course, from like the Star Wars and Lord of the Rings franchise, etc., etc. And also, you have Shaft. Richard Roundtree is in Eye for an Eye as well. So another solid flick for Chuck Norris. 82, he comes out with Silent Rage, which this is kind of interesting because this is Chuck doing a little bit of like some sci-fi-ish type of flick. And he's playing a cop. He's playing a sheriff in this. And pretty much like investigates some murders. They're peculiar. People are coming back to life. But if science should learn anything, don't fuck with Chuck Norris because it's not going to end well for you. Okay. And I think also too in this era too, with Chuck Norris, the titles of his films are so incredible. Like this next one, in 82, Forced Vengeance, with Chuck Norris. What do you want to know? It's called Forced Vengeance, and it stars Chuck Norris. He's gonna fuck people up because he's Chuck Norris. That's what he does. 83. What you get an incredible film, an iconic film. Lone Wolf McQuade. And Chuck has some great co-stars too, and I don't think that gets talked about throughout the years with him because you just think Chuck is fucking Chuck Norris, right? But this also had David Carradine in it as well. And it's kind of a noir type of action-ish film, I would say. But Lone Wolf McQuade is a really badass, just crazy, over the top action flick. And it's like I feel like kind of like they were already kind of getting there, but then after that and what follows is the definitive run of Chuck Norris's career, because in 84 you have Missing in Action, which Missing in Action you could probably say was maybe the biggest flick of Chuck Norris's career. I feel like it's probably the most successful, and it's really what put a certain film studio on the map, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But man, oh man, Missing in Action's an incredible film. And then follow that up immediately. They do Missing in Action 2, which I think they filmed at the same time, I'm going to say. But they kind of do that as like as a prequel of sorts. So somehow I guess they knew what they were doing when they were making that. And then in 85, to me, my favorite Chuck Norris film of all time is Invasion USA. Invasion USA is so fucking ridiculous and so amazing. Like, I still have it embedded in my brain, the where the Russians or the Cubans, I think it was, or whatever, invade the neighborhood, like just invade like a suburban home in the like during Christmas time. It's the stupidest over like what they're just taking. Well, you know what? I could fucking let's just fucking show you this clip from Invasion USA. You just see exactly because it is absurd, to say the least. Um, so let me set you the premise. So it's like they've got the foreigners have gotten over here in the States, and now they're trying to put their footprint on America. So it's Christmas time. Why not like set an example? Well, this is just a random neighborhood, anywhere USA. Okay. Merry Christmas. By the way, does this mean Invasion USA is like a Christmas flick? I think it is. A little girl climbing up, just so wholesome. Oh shit. Oh shit. This isn't gonna fucking end well. Like you know when the bad guy's getting up like that, it's like, oh shit.
5 more minutes.
Yeah, it's 5 more minutes. Come on, bro. Which, by the way, I always thought that film was Rutger Hauer, but it is not.
They make it so easy, don't you, Nico?
It's like, oh, this is nice and wholesome, right? Fills your heart with the Christmas spirit, right? Yep. And then what the fuck? Not only is he's got a goddamn rocket launcher. Okay.
I see that.
Oh, nope. It's maybe a change of heart, right? For what? For what? Let's just blow up a bunch of fucking houses because we can. This is what I love about 80s action flicks. The absurdity of these stunts, man. It's like, why? Why not? Is the more important question. Look at that fucking guy running. Like, what are you gonna do? He's got a goddamn fucking. Oh god, I can't speak. It's so good. But here's the thing, you know, they done fucked up against one Chuck Norris, man. Because you know Chuck Norris ain't gonna lie down for that shit. No. There's a scene like where with a bus, he's saving kids on like a bus. Like, just watch all of Invasion USA. We watched it. It was one of the first episodes we did on Friday night movie night. It's so fucking good, but we got a lot more to talk about here. But one more thing I want to highlight and show you from Invasion USA is the ending. It's so good. You can't talk this movie without talking about this fucking ending, okay? And it's like it takes place in an office building. Of course, the bad guy's got his fucking rocket launcher. I'll shut up and let it speak for itself. It's like, oh, okay. And by the way, like all the other villains have been killed single-handedly, an army single-handedly killed by Chuck Norris. So what the fuck makes you think you're going to... Oh, shit. Oh, shit. You should be pissing your pants. Look at Chuck. Oh, dear God. You're so fucked. Uh-oh. He knows he's fucked.
It's time.
It's time. Oh, dear God. I would be shitting and pissing myself so bad. Oh. Fucking blows his ass away. Oh, dear God. It's incredible. And that's it. The end. And we all lived happily fucking ever after. Oh, dear God. Chuck Norris. Rest in peace, my friend. Like, good God. And that's the thing. We still got more to talk about on just his body of work alone, man. Let's kind of run it down the rest of what Chuck Norris did in the 80s. Because here's another thing. Fuck, I said missing in action. This next one probably is actually the most well-known and successful. The Delta Force. The Delta Force was a huge film with Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin. And that's another film that put a certain studio on the map. They've made multiple Delta Forces afterwards. But Delta Force is a hugely popular film. And, of course, it's... I would say... And this may be kind of a weird comparison, but I'd say like it's the A-Team on steroids, kind of, sort of. Because it's like a special task force team, and they're coming back to help out and just fuck shit up, essentially. But Delta Force is arguably another one of those. Then also in 86, he had Firewalker come out, which kind of had a little bit of humor to it. Also had Louis Gossett Jr. was in that with him as well. And this is about like treasure hunting. So like that one's not well as known. Missing in Action 3 comes out in 88, followed by Hero and the Terror, which is this one's kind of getting back, or once again Chuck kind of doing some like typical. He's playing a cop. That was kind of a recurring thing. Chuck Norris was either a kung fu master, like a cop, or served in the military, or was kind of like a vigilante or something like that. Like it was kind of like he played like those three characters essentially, and that pretty much rounds out Chuck Norris's run in the 80s. And also, like we mentioned, he did a sequel, Delta Force 2, that came out in 90. But I mean, between him, you're just thinking like it's Invasion USA, Delta Force, Missing in Action are the big ones from that era. And Invasion USA is so fucking good. I mean, I don't know what more can you say about the late great Chuck Norris. I mean, he's fucking Chuck Norris, dude. Now, this guy, I'm really excited to talk about because this is my guy. This is probably my favorite action star from the 80s. Jean-Claude Van Damme, a martial artist. Jean-Claude Van Damme's body of work in both the 80s and the 90s was incredible. Now, I will say this. I think Van Damme really hit his stride in the 90s, is really kind of where his films really peaked, so to speak. But I mean, he started in the 80s, and Van Damme, God, what a run he had there in the 80s. Well, it's an interesting story, I think, with Van Damme is he was actually originally supposed to be in Predator as the Predator himself. But but it didn't work out for whatever reasons. There's a lot of stories on it, but really, like, and when we talking Van Damme really didn't like hit it big until like the late '80s too. So, and we mentioned earlier, Missing in Action. He actually was in Missing in Action with Chuck Norris. So it's like a small part, but he did a lot of stunts and stuff. But it wasn't really until Bloodsport in '88 that put Jean-Claude Van Damme on the fucking map, and I mean on the map. It's literally Bloodsport and Kickboxer, and that's another thing too. Both of those films, neck and neck as far as like the trajectory they would put Jean-Claude Van Damme on. I mean, he had a couple others there in the late '80s, like Cyborg is another one you got to mention, and that's like a sci-fi-ish movie as well, as long as an action flick. Which is the cinematography on that I always thought was pretty dope. The story's great too. But like I say, really in the '90s, my God, we're gonna save that for another time because we're mainly focusing on the '80s. But holy shit! And then also I guess Lionheart came out in 1990, so production of that was in the '80s. So we're gonna count that. Lionheart's a fucking awesome flick too. And just Van Damme and his stuff, he got like it's like he got his shit in. Like he always had to do the splits, right? He always got laid. Like maybe that was more so in the later '90s, especially when he started doing the straight to video stuff. But oh man, so fucking good. There's one I forgot. And I think it was like a foreign film, and then it came over here. You'll have to look at it. It's something Eagle or some shit. But I remember I'm pretty sure that was in the '80s too. So, but Jean-Claude just really kind of getting his start in the '80s, but the '90s is his definitive era. But you can't talk any type of action without talking Jean-Claude Van Damme. I'm sorry, it's just you can't. He gets in just with Bloodsport and Kickboxer alone, man. And speaking of boxing, we have to talk this man. Dolph Lundgren, who I think is probably one of the more fascinating human beings on the planet, okay? Because the thing of it is, Dolph Lundgren, we see this big bruiser of a man, right? But the thing is, he's an actor, but this dude has like a PhD, and he's like a fucking doctor, man. In like nuclear science. Dolph Lundgren is a fucking genius, okay? And like him doing action flicks in the '80s is like, fuck it. Why not? The Dolph Lundgren too, the thing is with him, he it's just like I say, he's one of the more fascinating people to me because like he's done everything from fucking films to Broadway. He's fucking boxed before in real life too, okay? And if you look at his start, shit, I mean, you go to Rocky IV made him a household name, right? But before that, he had a small part, and I think what really introduced him to the States and put people onto him, even though it was like a small role, but he was in a Bond flick. He was in A Few to Kill. But Rocky IV is like, okay, this dude's for real, right? And to go from that into the Masters of the Universe flick. And I love the new Masters of the Universe. I can't say enough good things about the new one, but I loved how they kind of played. They had a homage kind of in the new Masters of the Universe. I think that's really cool because I love the one from the '80s. I don't care what anybody says. But just those two movies right there off the bat, huge big flicks. And then he goes from that to '88. He comes out and he's in a film called Red Scorpion, which he's just playing like a special forces dude from overseas, essentially. what I remember about Red Scorpion mainly, and truth be told, I haven't seen it all. I've seen bits and pieces, I think, but I just remember the box cover of the VHS at stores. I thought was really cool. And then in '89, he comes out with a film that I think doesn't get nearly enough love, The Punisher. For whatever reason, that movie kind of got shit on, and it went straight to video too, which is fucking weird to me. But I think that had a lot to do with the studio producing and stuff. But '89 Punisher goes hard, dude. That's a solid flick, man. And then later on, we mentioned John Claude. You got to mention his part in Universal Soldier, which is awesome. Also, another one of his I want to mention that, granted, it's not technically in the '80s, but I really liked it. Honestly, this was probably one of the first 4 or 5 DVDs I ever had. Was Showdown in Little Tokyo, and it's kind of a buddy cop movie, kind of the same vein of like what Stallone and Schwarzenegger did. But this one had him and a young Brandon Lee. And it was Brandon Lee's, I think it was his first movie he did in the States. But showed, and also it had, oh dear God, I can't think of her name. From Wayne's World. Is it Tia Carrere, right? Oh, what a babe she was, right? Still is. But Showdown in Little Tokyo is a great film. But Lundgren, man, put on the map with Rocky IV, and then just the stuff he did thereafter. Incredible. Love me some Dolph Lundgren. Gotta mention this guy. Love him or hate him. Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal is he's an interesting cat, to say the least. But back in the day, like when he first started, his first flicks that came out, they were pretty solid. They're not bad. And once again, Seagal kind of like Van Damme, and even I would say Lundgren to a certain extent too. Really, the body of his work was in the '90s. But you have Nico's Above the Law as his first real big film, and that came out in '88. And yes, that's has one of the most famous lines in any film. Yeah, I'm going to take you to the bank, Senator. The blood bank. Oh, it's so good. It's so fucking good, brother. But you can't go wrong with a little Above the Law. And like for that being his first flick, is like, okay, this is going to be fun. And he also too another in the same realm of this with these genre of films is just like you can't fucking kill him, no matter what. You're not gonna fucking stop Steven Seagal, dude. It's just how it is for whatever reason. But man, above the Law, as whether you love or hate Seagal, it's worth a watch. It's worth a watch. And then like right in, we're gonna count these two because they come out in '90, but we gotta mention he follows it up with Hard to Kill, which is another great film with the beautiful Kelly LeBrock, which he was married to Kelly LeBrock. Granted, it was for a short period of time, and he's a fucking douche, but still, a big action star, and you were married to Kelly LeBrock, like, yeah. I guess that's the reason why he had such a big ego. Marked for Death also came out in 1990 as well. And these are all movies where he's pretty much playing like a cop or some shit. And a lot of people remember Under Siege, Out for Justice later on as well. But we're not talking 90s, we're talking 80s. But we got to give a mention to one, Steven Seagal. But these were kind of like the big over the top, ridiculous. But you had a bunch of other big stars too, and the other action films. And you got to talk, I think, about like kind of like I would say these are in the vein of adventure. I mean, come on, Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was like Bruce Willis is fascinating. His rise to the top is because Bruce Willis really kind of starting off as like a extra. You could see him in like commercials and some flicks and stuff, but doing Moonlighting, the TV show, is what put him on the fucking map. Because like doing that, he was in everybody's Household Weekly with Sybil Shepherd. But but it's Die Hard. It's fucking Die Hard that put like, and really it. Although Die Hard 2 came out in 1990, Bruce's like other big action flicks would be like later on. But then again, also too, if you look at Bruce Willis's body of work, he did so much. He did a little bit of everything: comedy, fucking drama, action, sci-fi, like you name it. There's nothing that Bruce Willis could not do. But I mean, dude, Die Hard. Die Hard is arguably the definitive action film of all action films, and the definitive Christmas film too. Yes, it is a Christmas movie. I will stand on that hill. So is Die Hard 2. But I mean, Bruce Willis. What more can you say? Also, too, by the way, Bruce Willis is the only one of these guys to have the balls to release an album. That's right. Yeah, he sang. Yeah, this is the Return of Bruno. Look at the Return of Bruno. Yeah, I got this at a yard sale like not too long ago. I had to share it. So, yeah, Bruce Willis on vinyl. Doesn't get more better than that. But I mean, Bruce Willis, the Blueprints, Die Hard, like just that one movie alone gets him talked about in the upper echelon of action stars of all time. We got to talk about Mel. This before he was fucking crazy. Mel Gibson, man. Mel Gibson arrived in the 80s, dude. Now, this is a guy who has a hell of a body of work in the 80s. And with multiple franchises, too, at that. I mean, Mad Max and Lethal Weapon. I mean, that's all you really got to, like, he could put his tailcoats on that. Of course, Mad Max coming from overseas, great Australian film. But as great as Mad Max was, it's the Road Warrior is the best. Like, that's the definitive Mad Max film as far as I'm concerned, dude. Like, you can't get better than that. But as great as Mad Max was, like then you do, and Mad Max 2 or the Road Warrior, then later on he does Mad Max 3, Thunderdome, Beyond Thunderdome. And that is like commercially probably the most successful out of all the Mad Max films, I would say. Man, a lot of hype into that one. You had Tina Turner, singing the song. A great sci-fi flick, man. Thunderdome, as great as Road Warrior is, Thunderdome's a pretty solid. They're all three great, but like I say, Road Warrior for me is always going to be numero uno as far as I'm concerned with the Mad Max films. And then, later on doing Lethal Weapon, you have Lethal Weapon 1, Lethal Weapon 2, which also, by the way, let me throw this out there, Lethal Weapon, a Christmas movie. I'm just saying. And the sequel was great. Like, the whole franchise is great for the most part. Now, 3, we could debate that. And then but the fourth one I think doesn't get enough love. It's pretty solid, I would say. But Mel Gibson, another guy we got to mention. And then like I say, he had a bunch of other stuff in the 80s too. And he was still doing Aussie films too as well, man. Because like he didn't really take off here in the States until like the mid 80s. I really think it's Beyond Thunderdome that put him on the map in the States, because everybody was already familiar with the Mad Max series pretty much. But after he does Thunderdome, that's when he gets Lethal Weapon. And I mean, he had some other flicks too, and he did a lot in the 90s as well. But I mean, once again, to me, even though we're talking 80s, we got to mention him because he's got 2 huge action franchises in Mad Max and in Lethal Weapon. So another huge star of this genre. Oh man, yes, a man's man if there ever was one. Kurt Russell. I've always been a huge fan of Kurt Russell's, and he has had some defining characters, and what a great run he had in the 80s, and doing action flicks and sci-fi, mostly sci-fi for sure. I mean, Snake Plissken, one of the most iconic characters of all time. Of course, Escape from New York, coming out in 1981. Then you have in the 90s Escape from LA, which wasn't quite as good, but I still kind of liked it. It's okay. Don't hold it against me. It's guilty pleasure. And then, my God, one of my favorite horror films of all time, The Thing. And also him working with John Carpenter. Had so many great films, like Big Trouble in Little China, which I think is another one of the top tier films in the genre of action in the 80s. I mean, that's probably Kurt Russell's maybe like his most successful 80s flick. Would be Big Trouble in Little China. We mentioned earlier Tango and Cash. He was in that. And Kurt Russell's another one of those too. He did a lot of like different romantic comedies, like Overboard, of course, with Goldie Hawn, his partner. Tequila Sunrise, just to name a few there. He did some sports stuff too, but to me, we got to mention him mainly because of the Escape movies and Big Trouble in Little China. So, Kurt Russell, awesome actor. Absolutely love Kurt Russell. And this next one, rest in peace, Patrick Swayze, taken from us way too soon. So here's a fun story. I would often get Kurt Russell, Patrick Swayze, and Dennis Quaid all kind of mixed up because they all kind of did like the same thing, really. But Patrick Swayze, gone way too soon. What a stud he was! Like in his filmography, especially in the 80s, dude. Holy shit. You got he did every type of like think you can think of as far as genre, like played the war guy. But I mean, for me, it's Red Dawn. The first Red Dawn. There was no need to remake that. There's no need to ever remake that because you're never going to be able to capture how magical Red Dawn was. That and fucking Roadhouse, dude. Roadhouse is like, if you want to be a man, you want to put some hairs on your chest, you fucking watch Roadhouse. He's throat gripping people. He's ripping throats. He is ripping throats. Dalton is ripping throats. And ending bad guys. Also Terry Funk's in that too, by the way. And Sam Elliott, who it's okay if you are a dude and you have a crush on him because he's a beautiful, beautiful man. And maybe his sexiest in Roadhouse. I mean, come on. And I mean, and Patrick Swayze too, of course. Like in the 80s, you got to mention Dirty Dancing. And Swayze was one of those guys who didn't get pigeonholed as doing a lot of just action movies. But I mean, he's got some pretty top tier titles in that genre. And you can talk in the 90s later on with Point Break, which is fucking phenomenal. He was taken from us way too soon. God, I love me some Patrick Swayze. All I gotta say, Patrick Swayze, Roadhouse. That's all you need to fucking know, man. Like, he is another one of the megastars from this era. And speaking of megastars, the star of stars, the man's man, Harrison Ford. I mean, Harrison Ford. Right here you see it. Playing the two of the most iconic characters of all time, Indiana Jones and Han Solo from Star Wars. I mean, he's fucking Harrison Ford, dude. He's Harrison Ford. What more do you want to know? He gets by with just that alone. Raiders of the Lost Ark, that trilogy is the definitive series of like adventure films, I would say. And all set in or come out in the 80s. With Raiders in 81, you have Temple of Doom in 84, and Last Crusade in 89. And all of those films are amazing and unique unto themselves. And also during this time frame, he also is doing Star Wars. So he does Empire Strikes Back and then Return of Jedi. And at the same time, too, he also in the 80s does arguably the most beloved and iconic sci-fi film and visually stunning sci-fi film of all time in Blade Runner. There's other flicks too, but fuck, we don't need to mention them because that's it. That's like good enough. I mean, he does like some dramas, like Witness is a good one. That's a really good flick. He was in Working Girl with Meg. Was it Meg Ryan or Melody Griffin? I see that's another one. I always get those two mixed up. But dude, Indiana Jones flicks, Star Wars flicks. Come on. Come on, man. What more? Like I say, Harrison Ford, he's a man's man. Like the definitive, like, granted, it's a different type of action film, but still action nonetheless. Action adventure is fucking Indiana Jones films, and like I say, they all are taking place in the 80s, man. So there you go. Those are just some of the iconic stars, but also we got to talk about one Bond, James Bond. Yeah, we can't talk about action flicks and not mention James Bond. And I think the 80s was a wonderful era for James Bond flicks, because you had at the start of it Roger Moore, of course, so iconic in the role of Bond, of course, taking over the reins from Sean Connery. And he, in the early 80s, there's some great ones from For Your Eyes Only and A Few to Kill and Octopussy. But really, when I think of the 80s and I think of Bond, I honestly think of Timothy Dalton. And Timothy Dalton, although he had a short run, only 2 Bond flicks, but both of them coming out in the 80s, between The Living Daylights and A License to Kill, were some solid ass flicks, dude. Those movies speak for themselves. I think like, even though he did 2 Bond flicks, I still think of him as one of the better Bonds. Like, both of those movies are incredible. But and it goes back to show you too, they're very action driven, of course, but it's also very much of the time frame in the 80s. They're very much 80s style films with the technology used, with the aesthetic and everything about it. And that's one of the things I love about both of those Bond flicks. And Timothy Dalton was a guy just, I don't think, nearly got enough love. So we want to throw some love to one Timothy Dalton and, of course, the Bond flicks. But in talking the 80s here and talking the genre and kind of wrapping this up, we would be remiss not to talk about arguably the studio of studios when it came to producing action films, Cannon Films. Cannon Film Group, my God. There's a wonderful documentary on them. I have like an actual Cannon Film box set, and there's a documentary about like the history and how they came to be and stuff. And it's to me, it's always very, very fascinating, like what all they did. But dude, the action films, like we've mentioned a lot of them here today. They had that exclusive deal. Like Chuck Norris was their guy, and Chuck Norris is really who put Cannon Group on the map. Now, granted, like Cannon Films started in the 60s, but it's the action movies in the 80s is what fucking made them the be all end all, man. So you good God, you can go. And there was, don't get me wrong, there was some big hits, but there was some shit too. Some real shit. I'm looking at you, Superman 4. But from like the 80s there, like with them signing, like having big stars, and they signed a deal with Stallone too. They put out Over the Top. They had London, and they produced Masters of the Universe. Also responsible for the world being introduced to Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport. And then also, too, going way back in the early days here, they produced the Death Wish films, which, as I said at the beginning of this episode, talking about how Death Wish and Charles Bronson was kind of like one of the first real kind of big action stars. And Cannon did a lot of other stuff as well. But Cannon is a perfect example of getting too big for their britches. Because I can remember, and this thing popped up a couple years ago. Check it out on YouTube. It's like Cannon's upcoming releases they're going to do like in the late 80s or something. And I think the most notorious one that is known about is they're going to do a live action Spider-Man movie, actually, believe it or not. Of course, that never went through, obviously. But could you imagine if Cannon had produced a Spider-Man film in the 80s? But, dude, like, you can't talk action films. You can't talk action films of the 80s and not mention fucking Cannon Film Group. Like I said, there's a wonderful documentary on them. I would highly recommend checking out. And I'm sorry the name's escaping me, but if you just look up and Google like Cannon documentary, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But the Cannon films in the 80s, chef's kiss. Chef's fucking kiss. The definitive action film. I think American Ninja was produced by Cannon too as well. So many great films. But in closing on this discussion we've been having here on 80s action flicks, everybody does it. Which I was really hoping to hear what Best Gout's opinion was going to be on this, but so I wonder where that guy is though. Anyways, I have to give you my Mount Rushmore. A Mount Rushmore of 80s action films and 80s action stars. So I'm going to start with stars first because, I mean, that's kind of, I'm not going to say easy, but it's like, to me, it's Stallone and Schwarzenegger. That's on everybody's list. You can't have a list without those two. So Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and because I love him so much in Bloodsport and Kickboxer, Jean-Claude Van Damme gets a spot. Which I know that could be a little controversial, but whatever. And then I think I have to say, honestly, and I'm just going based off, or like I think you have to have him. Another one, and I shouldn't have him before. I guess I should have mentioned him before. Chuck Norris. You can't have this discussion without Chuck Norris. So, like, I think the definitive three are Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Chuck Norris. And then, like, the fourth one's up for debate. And for me, I'm going to give a slight edge to Jean-Claude Van Damme, but also you got Harrison Ford, you got Mel Gibson knocking on the door. But they did other things, too. So I'm thinking mainly just in the action genre. So that was easy. Ish. Films, on the other hand. Okay. And I feel like you have to have a Stallone and you have to have a Schwarzenegger film, right? But there's so many other fucking great movies. I don't think I'm going to throw any Rocky in there because, I mean, that's more of a drama, action, sports, whatever. But if you're doing like definitely probably one of the Rambos, right? I don't think you can put First Blood on this list because First Blood is more of a serious type of film. I guess you could say I'm leaning towards Cobra or Over the Top. But then again, I look at the other flicks. I think it's crazy to say, but I don't know if I'm going to have a Stallone one on my Mount Rushmore of 80s action flicks. And that being said, flipping the script to Schwarzenegger on the other hand. If you want to be technical, does Terminator or Predator count because they're more sci-fi films? I don't know. But they're both so good. And then, like I say, you got stuff from, God, like Swayze and Russell, and it's just hard. Picking. I should have just stuck to action stars, and I would have been okay. But I'm gonna say this. This is my list, okay? So I'm gonna put Commando on there because I feel like no matter what, we got to have a Schwarzenegger one, and that's a damn good action flick. I'm going to have that. We sure as shit ain't having this conversation without Chuck Norris. We're putting Invasion USA on there. That has to be on there. because I'm also thinking of just like ridiculous, over the top, just insane action, right? We definitely, and and see, you could go either way with this. You can go more towards the adventure aspect of it, which that's where you're talking like Indiana Jones and shit coming in. But I'm not going to lean towards that. Once again, this is my list. I think I'm going to have on here, because I love him so much, I got to have Bloodsport. Bloodsport's going to be on my list. And rounding it out, so tough. It's like it's okay. So I'm thinking either Lethal Weapon, Big Trouble in Little China, or Roadhouse. Matter of fact, I'm going to do this because it's my fucking list. It's a tie between Roadhouse and I'm going to say Big Trouble in Little China. Although Big Trouble in Little China is kind of a sci-fi-ish film, right? So, okay. All right. Here we go. By process elimination, we're going to say my Mount Rushmore of action films from the 80s. Commando, Invasion USA. We're going to say Bloodsport, and we're going to say Roadhouse. There you go. That's my Mount Rushmore of action films from the 80s. I could go on and on talking about the 80s and action flicks. If you've ever seen any of the stuff we've talked about here today, do yourself a favor. Go on and check them out. So many great films from the 80s and the action genre. It is the definitive era, as we said at the beginning of this podcast. If you haven't seen any of these flicks, go and check them out. Cool thing is a lot of these are available on Tubi. A lot of other streaming platforms have easy access to them. It's just a popcorn man and a tasty beverage, and you're going to have a damn good Friday night, Saturday night, whatever night. It doesn't matter, because every night can be an action night. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on this episode of Colecast, where we were talking 80s action stars. Of course, we missed Best Gout Machine, but hopefully we'll get him on the next one. I don't know what that guy's doing.
Where the hell am I? Am I going to pleasure you orally? Like, if I have to, I will. I feel like you don't want me to do that. It's so cold in here. Are you eating Burger King? And are you watching me while you're eating Burger King and drinking a Big Red from a bottle? You didn't even get a fountain drink from Burger King. You sadist. You sadist. You brought your own drink from the Kroger. Who does that? Well, I'm just saying, once again, you can have your way with me. Oh, I'm such a victim. Oh no, I am so scared of getting torn up back there. Wait, you want to tear it up from the front? Do you have an extra Big Red on you?
But thank you so much again for watching. As always, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And don't forget, we fight for love.